What's up, everybody? Welcome to Tardy to the Party, aka T3P, where us two hooligans talk shop about that holy trinity of pop culture, Marvel, DC, and Star Wars. I'm your boy Jsib, and joined by, as always,
and I'm KP.
New week, Chapter 6 of the DCEU review in Memoriam. We have Aquaman, which came out in 2018, directed by James Wan, starring Jason Momoa, Amber Heard, Yahya Abdul-Mateen. I won't. Patrick Wilson, of course. I would have hated myself if I forgot. I would have hated myself if I forgot Patrick Wilson.
I was like, just keep going.
real quick, we had
also
no
Dolph
right.
Dolph
Lundgren. Like, this cast was awesome. I mean, despite the drama of whatever with Amber Heard or whatever. I have to say, I love her. I like her portrayal as Mara, and that's just somebody who loves Mara as a character in the comics. She's one of my favorites because she always keeps Aquaman in line. And I kind of puts him in his shit here. Mm-hmm. But back to Patrick Wilson. I remember when this was first announced that he was playing Ocean Master, and I was like, what? We are winning. Like, I was like, what right do we have having Patrick Wilson as Ocean Master? Because he's not just like he's like an actor. Like, this isn't the shit that he would normally do.
He is, but I don't know. I didn't think it was that crazy.
I mean, it's really not. You have, Edward Norton played the Hulk, and you have like these. He is
the second generation Owl in Watchmen, so I mean, I don't know.
That's actually true. I kind of forget.
It wasn't crazy to me. I love that movie.
I forget that he isn't.
Quick sidebar: I'd totally be down to retro review that movie too. I love that movie.
I would be down as well because I haven't seen it since it came out. I haven't seen it. Okay, I'm down because I haven't seen it since it came out, and I did not like it as a Snyder fan. I wasn't necessarily a Snyder fan back then because I was fairly young when it came out.
True,
but no, I did not like it. I was like, who the fuck are these old geezers, and why the hell do I give a fuck about these? Just they're lame. Just I don't know. That's how I felt. Sorry, but I would definitely.
Supposed to be Superman.
Why is this fucking cock out? Anyway,
the whole time. Anyways, yeah. So that's why his casting, I wasn't like, I don't know. I thought it was interesting for sure. Yeah. Oh, that neck problem.
But thank God for it because he just brings so much. I feel like weight to the role and. Especially in Aquaman 2, I feel like he just straight up carries that goddamn movie. But this one,
totally
he does. I wouldn't say he does like the carrying in this movie because I actually really enjoy this movie. Overall, like I think the world building was really well done as far as the Seven Kingdoms with Atlantis, and I love the fact that it took the source material, which Aquaman. There's so many campy things about him, and obviously he was a joke for the longest time, but I love the fact that they embraced those things about him, but also at the same time took it seriously. Like, they didn't take it like the world building. I thought was great, and setting up the trench and them actually showing up in this movie was just a fucking I lost it in the theaters the first time because I like the Aquaman New 52 run, especially, which Jeff Johns wrote, and he's also co-wrote this movie or is a producer on this movie. One of his very few wins as far as his movies go. But I popped so hard when they actually showed up. Like, the fact that they even got a reference, I popped. But when they actually showed up, and also that's one of my favorite. I think that scene when they dive in is just so gorgeous, where they've got the flare, and then you got all the. I feel like they took that from another movie. Chat or comments if you can help me out with. What movie that, because I feel like I've seen that shot in another movie, so I imagine they took inspiration from that. But it's just you have so much like cool, well thought out stuff. I feel like in this that they took seriously, but then at the same time you'll have a scene where there's an octopus playing the drums. Like, that's what I think makes this movie kind of like great. And before the DCEU inevitably fell off because they tried to way over course correct, I actually think this movie is probably the tone they were actually trying to strive for. Because I feel like it takes, like, I wouldn't say it's like grounded or dark, but once again, it takes itself seriously, but also has fun. There's jokes, there's lighthearted moments. So I feel like that's them trying to take pieces from Marvel, not fully committing and becoming Marvel like they kind of did, but just a terrible version of Marvel. Sorry for the long diatribe.
It has a no, that's okay. I do it all the time. It has a nice balance. You're right. It does take itself very seriously, but there's definitely like its humorous parts where, you know, the plan was for you to get Atlan's trident and then challenge him. Okay, plans change. Yeah, like improvise. You know, there's parts. You know, and I think they were going for a gag too when they're getting ready for the Ring of Fire, and I kind of like that moment where he's standing there. He's like, you know, all my life, he's like, all I ever wanted to do is just meet you and tell my little brother that he wasn't alone. And he kind of just, and then it's like they tried to make this a punchline or something, and then he just goes, but then like he just turned out to be such a dick or something. It's like, okay, I don't know. It's like you probably could have delivered that differently. I felt like they went for a laugh there, and it just was delivered kind of horribly. But I could just be being very picky. But I mean, the movie does have its fair share of comedic moments. I mean, it doesn't hammer them away at you. So I think that you're right. Like it does a very good job of taking itself really seriously and having some balance of it. I also loved the whole sequence with the trench. I love it later when the fish princess is like, he commands the trench. You know, I can't remember Lundgren's character's name. He's like, oh, that's impossible. And he's like, and like they're like all swimming at the other army. That's another thing I loved about this movie is how like the end, there's this big freaking battle between like these between these four armies, and
there's a giant battle crustacean.
Yeah, the one and that was cool too, how like, you know, it's been generations that no one's been able to ever replicate King Atlan's power, and now, you know, a filthy half-breed like Arthur has this ability, and I forget what he says, he's like, stop or whatever, and she, you know, the crustacean, she's just like, you understand me, and just kind of then that's like what deems him worthy, because otherwise she was just gonna kill him. I mean, she's slapping him around and everything, and that was pretty cool.
That's kind of what I mean, though, as far as like embracing its comic bookiness, like the fact that before he gets the armor, he's talking to this like giant kraken thing, like it's just like just beating the shit out, and all of a sudden it's like, oh wait, you can understand me, like. Inherently, that's kind of goofy and silly, but like it works in this universe because they took themselves seriously enough, but embraced his comic book. And for as much of a joke as he's pretty much been my whole life, it just makes me so happy to. This movie, it looked good from the trailers. I remember before I saw it the first time, but I was like kind of pleasantly surprised at the same time when I walked out of it. Like I was like, holy shit! Like.
Well, we got by the time this one came out, BVS was mixed received, and even then, I don't know when we got the director's cut of that. We might have had it by then, but I can't remember. And then you had Shit Aside Squad, and then you had you had a good one, and then you had the Justice League. So yeah, and then Wonder Woman was like the movie where it was like, oh, maybe they do know what they're doing. Holy shit, that was amazing. And then, even though, as we've said, you kind of didn't fully have that opinion because of the third act, but the majority of people, like, did love Wonder Woman. And so like this movie, it was kind of like you had some optimism, and I remember the first time I saw it, I came out and I was like, oh my god, that was awesome. And
Yeah.
but for context, not a comic book wasn't a comic book reader then. I am a part-time one now. So I didn't really, and yes, also the thing with Aquaman is like you said, obviously kind of like a jokey character. I mean, I remember being like a kid and like Cartoon Network having the reruns of the Super Friends,
Mm-hmm.
and he was just kind of lame. And then like and then later the Justice League cartoon that we got in 2001, you know, he wasn't really, he's like in 2 or 3 episodes.
Yeah.
You know, they don't have him as a league member. So, but I will say that storytelling of him is pretty cool because like he sacrifices his half of his arm for his kid and all that, but not trying to go on that tangent. So I just remember kind of walking out of the theater like, wow, I didn't know that movie was going to be that. And I thought they played the dual villain part very well, and I also liked that character growth with Arthur because he kind of goes from being this hard ass that also like that, like he saves humanity, but at the same time he's not really forgiving, and he, you know, he leaves Manta, well, his dad, the first Manta, whatever. He's like, he
Yeah,
basically leaves him to die.
yeah, before he leaves, he's like, "You guys killed innocent people. You know, I'll leave it to the CE to decide your fate."
Your fate, yeah.
Yeah.
And then,
and it comes to
yeah,
bite him in the ass later. Like,
right, it bites him in the ass later.
in the second movie still, even though they don't fully capitalize on that shit. But we won't get to that because we've already reviewed it. So we gotta go back.
Yeah, I mean, we already reviewed that. That wasn't that long ago that we reviewed that one. So, anyways, yeah, that's the thing. Is like it kind of bites him in the ass later, and he's kind of like, I kind of feel responsible, and that's my fault, and you know, how he says to Mara, he's like, it could have got you hurt and stuff like that. So you know, we got some character growth. You also kind of feel for Arthur too, because like all he's ever wanted to see is well, I don't know that it's really sold on us that all he's ever wanted to see was Atlantis, because
no, it's more he wanted to see his mom and he wanted to see his brother too after he found out that he had a brother.
Right.
I feel like those are the like, but yeah, he to this point in the universe he really didn't care to
because what he knew is that they killed his mom. So like that's kind of right.
Trench. And then we got How to Train Your Dragon 2 or whatever it is in live action. But I've already seen it. I don't know if you've ever seen How to.
I've seen the first one. I've never seen the sequels.
It's probably definitely the second one. Oh, spoilers, KP.
That's fine. Hey, you know what? Speaking of live action, they're gonna live action those movies, so I'll just watch those.
I've already seen it. I've already seen How to Train Your Dragon 2 in live action after seeing Aquaman, man. It's no dragon.
Hell yeah, dude.
Just ocean monster. Shit. Seahorses. Sharks that you can use as mounts underwater or surf on them with trident. Also, the fights in this movie are... I don't know if it's just because you don't see like trident fights in very many movies or whatever, or anything similar to them, but I don't know. They're very satisfying to me. I thought they did a really good job. And I kind of like how there's like this... Seems like there's this unwritten rule, or maybe it is a written rule, because it does... I didn't even see this the first time I saw this, where there's like... Where they go to the Ring of Fire the first time, it has those like 2 pop-up screens for the pros and cons for both of them. And it's literally just like Khan's half-breed... drunk and something. I can't remember what the other one was. And then when you look at Orm's, like the very bottom one is like 5-time like undefeated trident champion or something like that. So I don't know if it's like in the rules you just fight until one of you like splits your trident in half or whatever. But I kind of like how that's like kind of the rules of combat, as you duel until one of you splits.
Yeah.
Poor Orm and his undefeated trident though that he got from his. It wasn't just a loss of a fight. That was a loss of a legacy.
Yeah, for it, man.
Goddamn half-breeds.
His dad is a dickhead. knowingly like like sacrificed his wife to a bunch of sea monsters just because he was jealous. And that's the plot.
And after she had your kid, and that's fucked up. That's the thing that they kind of like talk about, but like when you really sit and think about it, you're like, that's really fucked up.
Mm-hmm. Right.
But
and it's only a good thing that, like, you know, she did end up killing all those Atlanteans that came for her in the beginning, because like obviously like Arthur would have just been big plot hole. It's like, well, why they never go kill him? But otherwise, I mean, she obviously never gave that up. So
right.
But yeah,
very true.
Yeah,
I feel about your boy Django being in here as a Papa Aqua.
Good father figure role.
Yeah, I liked him in the role.
The role that we didn't get to see play out in our beloved Star Wars. Crack me up.
We can pretend Jason's Boba in this.
yeah.
Alternate reality.
I mean, there's plasma guns and shit in this. I mean, why not? But no, I will say I agree with you on the trident fighting, because it's just like, it's a different weapon. Like everything in cinema and stuff, and every time we have some like medieval time type movie, show, whatever, you know, bows and arrows, swords and shields, like maybe
occasional
crossbows, occasional spear, maybe crossbows. If we're talking about China, some gunpowder. You know, that's about it. You know, maybe cannons if we're watching Pirates of the Caribbean. Some, some.
I'll watch me some pirates.
Right, but like a trident is like, we never really see that kind of weapon. So, and I agree with you too that I love the fighting and the choreography they did.
And I also will say I will just extend that to all the fights in the film, even with the beginning one with his mom Atlanta, and all the Atlanteans at house. James Wan's style is really cool and interesting when it comes to action scenes and stuff like it. It's really cool how he kind of tricks you into thinking some of his shots are oneers, because he just has an interesting way of pulling his camera in and out of certain scenes and setting it up in different places, but keeping it still feel as the scene is continuous. Thanks to that was CGI in some cases, but I think it was executed pretty well in this movie. The only thing that threw me off a little bit is the de-aging with our boy Django in the beginning was not bad, but it's not good or great either.
Even with Willem Dafoe, I was like sitting there watching it, and I'm like, oh, that's kind of bad. Also, Willem Dafoe, we did not say him as well earlier. Yes. We were rattling off the actors.
Like I said, it's a good ass cast, man. And the other spot that was really weird to me that kind of stuck out is actually the final fight with, I could be wrong, could be one of them cases where it's just maybe the color palette's just weird in the scene, but it almost, I was just sitting there thinking, watching this the second time, I was like, is Ocean Master's suit CG? Like, is he wearing a CG suit in this scene? Because it just looks off. And especially the scene, or the point of the scene where he's like on his knee or on one knee, and he kind of like barely shifts his leg a little bit. There's some weird like clipping thing that looks like happens, and I'm like, he's not actually wearing that. And it also just the coloring looks off in that. But overall, I like the color palette of this movie. I think it's very pleasing to the eye, especially when you're underwater in Atlantis. I love the way they set up Atlantis. Very, very cool. And
yeah, just a shame we didn't get a lot of it, though. You know, we just kind of get a gloss over and the arena and then the courtyard.
It would have been cool to see more of it. But what we did see, especially that first like fly in with him and Mara going in, it's like he finally
you get the wall, the traffic.
It's like it's almost kind of like Tokyo or Las Vegas at like nighttime, and like at night underwater in Atlantis, in a weird, not a perfect description, but just that type of feel to it. I kind of like that they kind of went for the aesthetic for it. I mean, I like both of our Atlantis. tallow can. DCEU. Very different design, but I also like what they went for. Very different designs, but so another thing that I realized was my boy Black Manta. They did such a good job with him in this movie of setting him up, and then you have the end credit teaser where they tease him for the second one. And I just remembered when I watched that, I was like, oh yeah, I was so hyped that my boy Yahya Abdul-Mateen was gonna just kill it in the second one. And then I remembered they reduced him to a puppet in the second movie. Damn it.
No.
Damn it.
No killing it.
No wonder he went to Marvel. He deserves so much better. Small thing also with Manta. I do love how they made the excuse for him having such a big ass helmet is actually like a design, like a design necessity. Yeah, like
the power of the eyes was too much, and he's like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to make the helmet bigger because the flow back is so bad." I'm sorry, it still doesn't really make sense because it's like, well, it got hot that it split open. Like, how does the helmet being bigger change that at all? Like,
thicker shell.
Yeah, dude. Okay.
Doesn't split open. Doesn't bang.
It doesn't bang. Yeah, I loved how he basically like takes all their tech and builds himself a fucking Iron Man suit, basically.
Oh, and I completely forgot when we were watching Aquaman 2, Dr. Shin. Who's the actor? You remember the actor's name? He's also in Parks and Rec, and he's in the MCU too.
Yeah,
he plays Asian Jim.
He's amazing in his part his part in the Ant-Man movie, in the first two Ant-Man movies, is just amazing.
I completely forgot that they actually set up his character in this movie, and that he was like somewhat of a small. He was in a newscast in like the beginning, and then he showed up in the post-credit scene. I was like, oh fuck! I didn't realize that character was actually in the first movie.
Yeah, well, I remember watching it in theaters and seeing his like little cameo, and I was like, oh, it's Asian Jim. What do you mean, Dwight? Randall Park.
That's I was gonna say, like, I thought it's like Parker or something. Randall Park. Always good to see.
Also, I love that if you recognize the voice, but the voice of the
Brine?
The Brine is Gimli from Lord of the Rings.
So I had it to like 2 or 3. I was like, it sounds like Gimli, or it sounds like potentially the the second Dumbledore / Bill Nighy mixed together. Like, I was like, I don't know. So thank you for actually telling me that, because I meant to look that up and I forgot. Because I was like, I know that fucking voice. I know that voice.
Mm-hmm.
Anything else you want to touch on with this, KP? Any other scenes you want to call
out? No, there's not. Oh my god! And then, I guess I liked Nicole Kidman in this. I don't know. Like,
I mean, she's fine. She's fine. I wasn't like
also her, Nicole Kidman. So yeah,
but
there's 2 more. Okay, so again, yeah, God, this movie, its cast is ridiculous. Yeah, there's nothing else. Like, you said it perfectly. Like, before we even started recording, you were like, I just don't really know what all to say about this movie, because I do just genuinely enjoy it, but there's nothing that's like, for me, there's just not a lot that fully stands out. I mean, I don't know. All the stuff Mara does is really, really cool.
Agreed.
Yeah, and like I said, the big battle at the end, and then I can't remember the name of it, but the giant crustacean that ends up helping him and all that shit, and then I love that he kind of uses the whatever his like telepathic sonar to speak to the fish, like you said, it makes all the shark mounts like buck off their riders and eat them and shit, and I was like, oh, okay then, like all right,
Yeah, it's just not a very. I think it's almost kind of like the perfect encapsulation of like a comic booky movie. Like if you just want something that's just
entertaining that
feels,
you don't cringe at.
Yeah, just something that's how do I want to describe this? Like it's not very deep, but it's something enjoyable. It's it can have some campy like goofiness if you kind of take it at face value, but if you do a good enough job in setting up the world and embracing all of those things that make the character of Aquaman and the world of Atlantis great, the fans are going to love it and they're going to eat it up because that's what they grew up reading and watching on the cartoon. As much as I love the more darker, grounded, grittier superhero stuff, with a character like Aquaman, and I think different superheroes and characters in general, whatever you're talking about, they need different tones for different movies. Like, not every movie in the MCU needs to have the same tone. Not every movie in the DCEU have the same different. Like Shazam. Shazam's a perfect example of that. Should have been a standout, different contrast from like the darker Snyderverse universe, even if it existed within that universe, because Shazam and Billy Batson is a more lighthearted, more comedy, also younger audience for the most part, like character. You're not going to make Shazam dark and gritty because it's just that'd be silly. And with Aquaman, and especially with how he was set up in Justice League, he's our bro, man. Like he loves. He's a guy you want to go have a beer with. Like he's not going to be. He doesn't need to have a dark.
They made him. I remember again. So at this point in time, we only would have had the Justice League, and they set him up as comedic relief.
Mm-hmm.
Like he and Flash were kind of the comedic relief. So yeah, so you're right. Yeah, I agree with everything you're saying, man. It is like, yeah, one, you don't always need that super serious, dark tone. The world is black and blah blah blah, and we're trying to make it and pull it over to in white and things of that nature. Yeah, so I think that's why this movie, it obviously works. This movie made $1 billion.
The only movie in the DCEU to break a bill.
Yeah. Yeah.
If you would have told me that before this started, like, hey, you're going to have Man of Steel, Batman v Superman, Justice League, Wonder Woman, and then you're going to have Aquaman. Aquaman's going to be the one that makes $1 billion, all right? None of the other ones will. I'd call you fucking nuts. I'd be like, what?
I'd be like, what?
He's a joke. No, there's no way. Is it a really
movie?
Is this just like a globally phenomenon comedy movie? Like what?
Right. I mean, I still don't really understand how. I will say though, I kind of don't understand how it made $1 billion, but
it made a lot of money internationally.
I was gonna say, apparently everyone in China just absolutely loved it. I don't know if it's because it reminded them of, like, I mean, the World of Warcraft movie did very well over there, so I don't know if it reminded them of that or what it was, but yeah, I mean, regardless, I don't want to take anything away from this movie. It's fully just the only comparison I was going to make was like this movie just is what you said. It's an entertaining movie that does take itself at least serious enough, whereas like a whole like comparison is like the Venom movies from Sony. entertaining, but they're cringeworthy. Like they're entertaining, but they're cringeworthy. This movie's entertaining, and you don't really cringe at it. It's like, yeah, there's some stuff that it's like, well, that CGI could have been a little cleaned up, but other than that, I don't know. It's fine the way it is. I kind of think it's funny that they did do some de-aging on Volko, just because it feels like with Nicole Kidman with Atlanta. I mean, unless that's just how good looking she's kept herself. I mean, I didn't feel like it was as noticeable on her if they even did it.
I would agree. I don't think I really noticed it
that's
as much
like
on her.
Yeah, but that's really like my only gripes with the movie is like there's just times where the CGI is like, okay, that's really spotty. But outside of that, I mean, I don't really have a lot of gripes with this movie. So
just a rootin' tootin' good time, man.
I mean, pretty much.
And like, just to reiterate, like, I am normally the person that does like my superhero movies to be more dark, grounded, gritty, but it doesn't always have to be that. And Aquaman is a perfect example, and I very, very much adore this movie. So much more. Thank God we came back. It's like, oh yeah, I remember this. Oh man, this movie was so good.
The second one's the last of the DCEU. Oh well, rip.
Hey, at least the last shot, even though he's eating a cockroach sandwich or what the fuck it is, but at least the last shot's of Patrick Wilson, man. The real goat.
He's eating a burger and a cockroach crawls up and he just picks it up and eats it. Pretty sure, but yeah.
Well, KP, we only got, I think we have 4 more left after this. But what is your rating for Aquaman?
Sorry, I was trying to think of the... Yeah, I guess we could... Yeah, that's fine. 4 more. Okay.
Because everything else we've already reviewed on the channel already. But anyway, we can talk about that later.
Okay.
But what's your rating for Aquaman?
I gotta give this one... I'll give it a 7.5. See, I can't give it too high because, again, there's nothing in it where I'm like... blown away. Oh my god, this is amazing. Like, there's nothing about it that does that to me, or there's not, I've nerded out before about, like all this line delivery. I love it so much. I love this moment, and I love what it builds up to, and all that. Like, there's nothing really in this for me. I mean, I know they went for one when he's like, call me Ocean Master. It didn't do it for me personally. So that's why I kind of got to give it that. It's, again, I feel like that's a fair score for a movie that I'm just kind of sitting here like, hey, it's really entertaining. It's not campy and cheesy. You don't really cringe much. Just, like you said, rootin' tootin' good time. So I'll give it a 7.5.
I think that's pretty respectable. I'm only a little bit higher than you. As much as I will say I love and adore this movie, I can't really give it any higher than an 8 out of 10. And that's more of me probably as a big fan, especially of the new 52 run of Aquaman. Granted, it was a little different, but it's definitely got some inspiration from that run. And it just finally, after all the years of him being a joke, it's really fucking cool that he got a really awesome, was very successful financially as well, which is still mind blowing to this day in my eyes. But yeah, I'm gonna sit at an 8. Like you said, there's nothing super deep. This movie doesn't have anything, very deep to say, at least as far, nothing like The Dark Knight or, I would even argue like Man of Steel, as far as like, even what that movie had to say. There's no deep question or anything like that. It's just a good time. It's a good story. The one thing that I guess one last thing before I guess I'm done. The one thing that I did like, that I thought was a nice touch and was kind of different about this movie is, it starts off with like, my parents met or whatever, blah, 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 blah. And then we hear the whole story. And then at the end, it's almost like in Aquaman's eyes, he's like, telling us the story. And while us, the viewer, are coming in initially thinking this is like, oh, this is, not necessarily. Well, you do get Aquaman's origin story, but like we think this is going to be a story about Aquaman, and it is. But in Aquaman's kind of view, this is the story about how his parents fell in love and saved the world, and because they got together and made him, all the dominoes effect, the butterfly effect from there. I thought that was kind of a cool touch that how they brought that back. You'll hear narration into a movie and out into a movie. I just thought this was a cool way for them to do that, and was kind of a different spin than you would normally see, or just something slightly unique. I don't know. Thought it was a little touching. Once again, could be a little cheesy to some, but I was like, I kind of like that. Kind of like how yeah, it's an Aquaman movie. It's about how his parents good ass fucking time. If you haven't seen it yet, go fucking see it, and then don't see the second one.
Don't see the second one.
Nobody else did anyway. It didn't make shit. This was $1 billion movie, and the second one didn't make shit.
That's so bad.
So yeah, that does it for Aquaman. Next week, like I said, I think we only got 4 or 5 more projects yet because we reviewed it. We can talk about that off video, but yeah, KP, where can the people find you?
All socials at Polite-esque.
Link down below, and then you can also find me on Twitch or basically all socials.
I'm just gonna start
at Jsib20. I don't know why, but also you can find us on Twitch, also at the handles and the links down below, and yeah, Jsib.
Hell yeah,
Polite-esque. Yep. So
next week, hopefully, I should be able to update my Twitch name to match all the other socials. It should be available. Hopefully. We'll see.
Hell yeah, brother. So, we appreciate you all for tuning in. If you liked what you saw, please give us a like, subscribe, ring the notification bell. Actually, you know what? What's the spiel? You all been on YouTube long enough. You know the deal, yo. If you like what you saw, just give us some love, man. Help our algorithm. So, until next time, I'm your boy, Jsib.
And I'm KP.
See ya later.
Yeah.